Hey everyone, welcome to PolRev Live and our Revolution Televised bi-monthly program. So I'm Karsh, I'm the Executive Director of the Political Revolution PAC, taking over for hosting today for Glow. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. Today we are going to be celebrating Earth Day together. So let's support the environment. That's something in our true progressive values. But let's get a little meta update about what's going on with the political revolution. I'm going to go ahead and toss it to you, Glow. Let's go over some of the AMAs that are coming up.
Hey, Karsh. So we've got a lot of AMAs going on. I think we have about 10 scheduled for the going all the way down to May 23rd. So we've got them a month out. I'm just going to list them off. April 23rd, we actually have a very interesting Ask Me Anything with the San Francisco Community Housing Act. They are a group of people. One of our friends, Lux, is one of the main organizers there. He also is one of the main developers at grassrootspb.com. But they are trying to pass a proposal that would tax middle-class and higher-income families to be able to afford housing for lower-income families and homeless applicants. And they're meeting a lot of opposition right now, and it's very interesting to kind of learn about some of the local politics that goes on there. But we definitely hope that you can turn out and ask them those questions about what they're trying to accomplish and some of the challenges that they're facing down there in San Francisco, California. So again, that is April 23rd, and from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. And then April 25th, 2 days later, we have Stephanie Zucker for West Virginia. Sorry, I'm just looking at her. West Virginia State Senate, District 14. April 28th, we have Kendra Fershee for also for West Virginia, Congressional District 1. And West Virginia is one of the states with the upcoming primaries, so we're going to be seeing a lot of get out the vote efforts, which we'll talk about shortly. May 3rd, we have Sean Kerrigan for South Carolina Congressional District 2. On May 9th, we have Bob Massey for Massachusetts Governor. May 15th, we have Kim McCarthy for Ohio State House, District 73. On May 17th, we have Cesar Armendariz, excuse me if I slaughtered that, candidate for Long Beach Unified Schools, District 03. And last but not least, we have Tim Canova joining us on May 23rd for Florida Congressional District 23. He is still running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and this time as an independent. So that's been in the news, and that'll be interesting to ask him questions about and see how he's going to bring the political or the progressive message to that district. Back over to you.
Thanks so much, Glow. And wow, that's really a really diverse set of AMAs there. And I mean, kicking off tomorrow with that organizational AMA. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Lux and his group have to say about that. And yeah, we always harp on about grassroots PB. So when Lux puts something together with his group of people, it's always really, really quality. So I'm really looking forward to that one tomorrow. Plus, I mean, with all of these West Virginia candidates, we've recently kind of been endorsing a lot of the slate of candidates there. We had the Lissa Lucas AMA recently, and it's cool to see that there's a lot of support for this progressive coalition of candidates running in West Virginia. And I want to see how they're banding together. They look like they're doing an excellent job of that. And interesting with Tim Canova. We'll see how that turns out. But once again, happy Earth Day to everybody. I just wanted to kind of jump into a discussion about our Earth and what we are doing to save it, protect it. One thing that's true and dear to me, I'm a former New Yorker myself, and I've been following a lot of things going back to 2012 with Governor Cuomo in office with fracking in New York. Now, that's something that's always kind of been, protested for years, beyond years, and Cuomo's been vying for potential presidential candidacy, and a lot of these things were all lobbied efforts. We were walking the streets of New York City trying to ban fracking in New York, and ultimately he did go around and, start to appease the progressives and the progressive message, the reason why we wanted that. Now it's going back. Tomorrow, actually, there's a big walk on the, walking the talk. That's what Cuomo has to do. There's a new movement that is going to be taken to Albany tomorrow. It's called Cuomo Walk the Talk on Climate. And it really does detail, the demands of what the progressive cause, not only progressive cause, what we as humans on this earth need to do. Halt fracking. And, stop this natural gas infrastructure from actually getting to the country. We're just going to be destroying our local towns and cities, the rural environment, the people who are drinking, you've seen Gasland documentary, the water is on fire. The water is on fire in this country. So what do? We have to actually go, and this is one of the best efforts. I would recommend, if you're in New York area and you can make it to Albany, there are going to be buses going there for free from all over the state. So check out CuomoWalkTheTalk.org and you'll be able to see how you can get there. But, Governor Cuomo has always had this way of talking. And, there's a challenger to that. There's a progressive message in this political cycle that we all need to stand to. And there are candidates like none other than Cynthia Nixon coming to the table to talk about those things, putting some pressure on Cuomo. And I wanted to get, some of your thoughts on that, Glo, actually. What do you think about Cynthia? I know we've had a lot of members in our community kind of have chats about her and really, get to what's going on in New York.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are throwing their support behind Cynthia right now. There was, of course, some friction in the beginning because of her being a celebrity and everything, but ultimately, Cuomo has not lived up to his promises, and everyone knows it. No one likes him at this point. Well, that's not to say the progressive community doesn't like him. Obviously, he has his support, but that's the very thing that we're fighting against. We're fighting against the support of big money interests, which even plague the Democratic side of things. And that's why we stick to our message of being nonpartisan, because party politics is what has ruined this country. So, So yeah, Cynthia Nixon, I think we're looking into endorsing her. We haven't made a decision on that yet. We're waiting to see if where her policies are kind of being flushed out right now. But yeah, definitely one of those things crucial to the state of New York and several other states is the issue of fracking, is the issue of clean water, is the issue of our carbon footprint. You lived in New York, your whole life, basically. When you walk through that city, it is like just, you can feel the smog, right? It's thick, the hair is heavy. I used to commute 20 hours a week underground in the subway, and you can literally see the subway deteriorate. I think Alex Ocasio was recently in the subway and took a video of a sewer rat, just hanging out, and it felt like it blended in perfectly, because literally, it's the sweat of the city kind of just seeping into the infrastructure. Now, Cuomo, for example, has said a lot of things recently too, just turning the tide, and there's been a lot of pressure like we've seen from Cynthia. But there's this obfuscating of the truth, and this goes along with a lot of the messaging that is happening in the Democratic Party in this country as well. Cuomo says that the state should double down on investing and fighting the dirty fossil fuels. That's something that he's been pressured to finally come out and say, but it's just filled with emotion in the end, because he still supports those fracking and gas pipelines, the one that will harm not only New York but the quality that you would expect. It's not like your situation, Glo, where you're coming from the area around Flint, Michigan, right? There is water clearly not potable and even drinkable, right, out over in Michigan. New York hasn't really been known for that. However, we don't want it to get bad. It's a city, and we already pay for all the utilities. Just, the main thing that I was fighting for while I was there was for wind and solar power. Off of the Far Rockaway in Queensboro, there's a giant wind tunnel that can just pass through. This is where Hurricane Sandy passed through, if you want to get some context. We could just put fans out there, save
and it'll be beautiful. It'll be its own little area, you know, south of the city, whatever. I know they're beautiful, they're fans, but Cuomo says, you know, he's taking decisive action on that. No, only 3% of the electricity comes from wind and solar power in New York City. And that could easily be pushing natural gas out of the sector if we were just starting to do it right. And, you know, it's another corporate lobbying measure in New York. It's media frenzy. Everything there is really, really tied into the energy companies and their money, and the Democrats and their old ways of working with the corporate lobby. So Cuomo's got to go. I think Cynthia definitely needs to flesh out those issues a lot more. And like you were saying, Lo, we haven't had a decision to endorse her. But the pressure is on, and it's going to be an interesting race. And hopefully planet Earth wins in the end. Beyond that, right, I wanted to kind of jump into also the water crisis around the country. I mean, we just recently heard about the water bottle programs ending in Flint. Also, with giving money to the corporations to drain more fresh water out of our Great Lakes. America! What are your thoughts on that, Glo?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you're referring to is Nestle being authorized to pump. So they were authorized to be able to pump 200,000 gallons per minute out of the what it's called the Great Lakes Basin. So it's a big old seasonal basin, and they're now authorized to pump twice as many gallons of water out of that per minute. And essentially what that translates to is a lot of fucking water that's being transported out of Michigan, a lot of fresh water instead of being put right back into the state. What actually happened with the poisoning of Flint's water, and it's not just a Flint problem, it's a problem in a lot of areas in Michigan subsequently due to bad city planning, due to bad pipes that haven't been replaced in 60, 70, 80 years. And it's a problem that is also, happening in rural countries as well rural states, because going back to fracking, right? Fracking essentially poisons the water. Drilling, we talk about that, and we can also talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline, right? Putting things that would not otherwise naturally be underground, right, causes problems. It poisons our underground freshwater supply, water that comes in straight from the rain, straight from the soil. It collects underground, right? And then we're pumping in oil, we're pumping in hydraulic drills, more oil, and that water is what a lot of rural communities use to sustain their crops, I used to live on a farm. We had well water, that's just how it works. There's no actual, water lines running out in those areas. You have every community has a well,
and it's 100% corporate disregard, right? Corporate disregard for our living spaces and the things that, are inherent to the infrastructure of our country, which is, like the farmers, the wells, right? The groundwater of our country that really, affects the place that we live upon, right? Fracking causes potential, earthquakes, right? Like the pseudo earthquakes with bringing water down underground and then shaking things up and causing natural disasters. Now, are we perpetuating that same story? Is such like a pathetic thing to see that the argument against global warming, and then you see people say, we're not causing this. Well, there's a direct example of, destroying the world that we live in, the voice of these people that just want to have their American life.
Yeah, that's what it really comes down to, I think, is conscientious consumerism. And we do have to make it easy for people. I think the way that information is disseminated and the fact that people have to work twice as long for less wages means that people are just essentially being subjugated. And it then becomes a matter of convenience. If people, and it's all intersectional. It comes down not only to like, it comes down to everything we do as people, how we live our lives, the type of products that we're supporting, right? We have to choose biodegradable waste, our waste, right? The waste that we produce, like the average human being produces a lot of waste. I was going to look up the statistic. I probably could in a minute, but
Like what, 5 tons a year? I don't know.
Yeah, a lot. A lot of more than most people would even think, right? I mean, you think about your trash can. If you're a family of 4, that trash can fills up once a day. You're going out back and forth, and what is actually, where does it go? What does your city support, right? Does your city have recycling laws, and which candidates support that, right? Conscientiousness. In those decisions, and
that is definitely one of the best existential questions of my day. When I throw something in the garbage can, it's like, whoa, where did that go? I just completely forgot about it. And that's what people do. They don't realize their footprints,
right,
crossing the earth every day.
And I wish, right, like my dream is to have the average American not really have to worry about that shit. Like, why was American society set up with all of these fallacies, right? These cracks. We set it up too fast. We put too much of an emphasis on individualism, entrepreneurship, and not enough emphasis on the conscientious portion of that. And everything that we have created, well, not everything, but a lot of the major industrial advancements in this country, at some point or another, it's very ironic. Scientists or environmentalists have come back and been like, okay, guys, cars are great, but our ozone layer that literally protects us from outer space and differentiates our planet from being a greenhouse planet and sustaining life is being destroyed by the decisions that we're making. People have to get that in their minds and not think about it as like an optional, like an opt-in. Like, I'm going to opt into caring to the earth today, right? The earth doesn't opt into caring about people. Like, we're already here, right? It doesn't have any place to send us. It doesn't have it can't just put its human waste on Mars or like Pluto. It can't just be like, all right, now I'm going to get my little earth people, my earth minions to just collect all the human waste, everything I don't want, and just put it somewhere else. Like, no, that's not what happens. It stays here. It stays here. Just because we don't see it, out of sight should not mean out of mind in this context. And the same thing goes for, all the things that we're talking about, and I'm not trying to make people feel guilty. I mean, a little bit.
No, but honestly, if we end up on Mars,
creates tension.
if we end up on Mars and we have to go back to Venus to get gas, then there's a problem.
Yeah, I forget what I was ranting about, but no, people don't have to feel guilty. I mean, because this is the world that we've been given, right? But how do we leave it better than it was before? And that can be, I mean, for me personally, I want to commit to having solar panels on the home. And that's something that actually gives back to you, right? Instead of paying a monthly bill for your energy, you're paying your monthly energy bill, you are self-sufficient, right? And that actually it's funny because that's one of those things that I think can be translated across like political ideology lines, right? Like a typical conservative person, I would think, is definitely an advocate of self-sufficiency, right? That also means in the form of energy. And ironically, the forms of self-sustaining energy are very clean and green. Having those solar panels, having a water mill, having a windmill, and it is an investment up front right now. And that's another thing. I think that the government right now, if we can put a progressive president in place, then the goal for them the next term should be to position America to be increasingly like conscientious, self-sufficient, and empowering individuals to make these, and giving incentive to individuals who make these choices, like, okay, yeah, you just spent $1,000 to install solar panels on your home. That's tax deductible, right? Or like half of that is tax deductible.
Now they are definitely, you know, targeting that message like you're talking about, the conservative message that is, you know, flawed in the corporate favoritism perspective. What's happened here is a bastardization of, you know, the lobbying efforts to the energy sector in our country. And they've taken away rights from individuals for us to be able to live in that world, safe from environmental catastrophe, right? And I mean, like, you know, let's talk about our state, Colorado. Like, John Hickenlooper, right? Nothing like Cuomo. He's actually a Democrat in the Western kind of sense. He has a little bit of that, you know, I'm against fracking and I'm going to do what I can. But, you know, all he did was raise signatures. He raised a petition up, and then the ballot measure never came to the initiative. So what is, you know, how do we forego some of our values as a very environmentally friendly state and still allow some corporates, you know, to actually take over and raise our state,
if anything,
raise the grounds, right?
If anything, I think I think it's funny that this is another thing where I kind of find myself like doing the like eyebrow thing at conservatives, because there's a lot of constitutionalism, right, in conservative theory and arguments. And
right.
My argument is that it is entirely constitutional to limit the power of corporations. And what has happened is that corporations have lobbied us at the federal level to create pieces of legislation like Citizens United that have completely destroyed middle-class America and rural America. And, you know, issues like gun ownership and these things that are very polarizing is what the media is focusing on. But the media and I think people, and that's why we're here, right? We're here to be the non-corporate media, to really get people thinking about these things. Like, people are just people. People will thrive, you know, or try to thrive in whatever context society gives them. Right now, we need to be challenging that context. Yes, entrepreneurship. Yes, you know, having a business, right? Self-sustainability, being driven, creating something from the ground up. These are inherently concepts that America were founded on, but they were not founded on the concepts that we should be destroying the land that we are given, that we should be, and right, destroying the land, destroying the people, right? Corporatism at the cost of other people's lives. That is not constitutional.
I would even rephrase corporatism to capitalism. You know, this is a symptom of capitalism.
Right.
Corporatism, you know, creates, I mean, I want to ask any conservative this. Corporatism in you know, an entrepreneurial sense, in a supply and demand sense, in cutthroat economic sense, corporatism creates a group of individuals that favor their profit, their gain, over the consumers that will gain ultimately overall.
And the thing
that's the idea here. We're creating this dichotomy at the basic definition of what, you know, the corporate capitalist would say. They are benefiting more than we are. Now, what is their world like and what is our world like? That's the disparity that is drawn by corporate capitalist symptomatic destroy our world politics.
It's funny, I don't know why this came into my head, but like some Hunger Games shit just came into my head. Like, one day there's gonna be, I mean, I don't know. That's why people make movies like this, these whole like post-apocalyptic disparity movies. Like, when does it end? Will it only end?
Hunger Games was college life for me. I was stuck in a 10-month winter in Chicago, right, under snowstorm after snow apocalypse after, you know, and now we have bomb cyclones out in New York.
I just
the
You know how
country
there's
is
like,
breaking down,
I know.
environmentally speaking.
It is kind of the reality. That's the other thing. Like, this is kind of the reality we're living in. So you have like the District 1, right? Like the one percenters. They have
Mhm.
easy access to everything. Water, education, cool clothes, culture, right? Culture is a huge part of this, right? And protectionism, like when you're born into a culture, you identify with it. That's your tribe, right? And one percenters definitely have that tribe of elitism, that tribe of and I feel like it really is a false sense of we made it, right? Like, oh, you know, we deserve this. We're not like, no. I guarantee you, like 99% of the one percenters, I don't know, the majority of people who are at that level they had some sort of pedestal, some sort of privilege. They had parents that were able to afford Ivy League colleges, you know, they had you know, in Trump's case, a small loan of $1 million, right? Like, good for you that you were able to invest that, but seriously, like, what the fuck? Like, a small loan? I don't even understand people's thinking sometimes. Like, where in the heck is anyone just gonna find $1 million? Like, I don't know. If I work, okay, I make $55,000 a year. It will take me my whole life on this salary to like make $1 million, I think. I don't know. I don't even feel like doing the math. It's like 10, okay, 50, 100 as zero. Yeah, it'd take me like 100 years, I think. I don't know. Anyways,
And
so
country might actually be living in the Hunger Games, right? Like everything will look like underground subway New York City, or everything will taste like the water in Flint. But honestly, yeah, it's about actually valuing the message that will fight across all of the message appeasers, all of the anti-citizenry, democracy
right.
kind of fringe groups, you know, that have pushed this ideology into people.
Right. And it's an
Also,
everyone
ideologies that have
problem.
been taken from people, you know, the ignorance that goes into fracking, the ignorance that goes into, you know, where does our global warming come from, is perpetuated by fringe groups that are absolutely, you know, messing up the ability for people to care for this earth. So you know, our generation and the generation that comes after us are going to have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah, the global warming thing, that's just a propaganda machine. I mean, it's that's the thing, right? Like the things I'm saying, like changing your individual ability to like to be present in these decisions, to be present like when you throw out trash, right? And not just giving into that same old routine, like that requires effort. Believing that global warming does not exist and watching TV, that doesn't take any effort. And the corporate media machine, you know, keeps people subjugated, because and people just do it because it's easy, right? It's easy to just keep being on, keeping on, right? But these are problems that affect everyone. Like, I don't want to really be saying like you know, that's the thing, like no one necessarily like, well, that no, there's two things. People don't want inherently to like make major changes to their life unless they have to, but they also don't want to necessarily be well, I don't think anyone wants, you know, us to start experiencing the more devastating effects of climate change, which would be like acid rain, decreased potability of water, right? Even more than we're seeing. And these things will keep happening, and that will start being the norm. Instead of the norm of being conscientious and green, the norm will then be more protectionism. Like, okay, you literally can't drink well water anymore. Well water has to be distilled and purified like 3 times before you can buy it, right? Then it'll be forced
Before you can
conscientiousness.
buy it. That's so true.
Right.
I
Then
mean,
it'll be forced
in New York, you know
conscientiousness
what they're
because
buying?
if you are eating, like, imagine like you're eating fish that are poisoned. I mean, that's already happening. What was the thing about the salmonella outbreak from like lettuce and cactus, or no, sorry, lettuce in Arizona? Like, how do people think this is happening? Like, it's not just because like, oh, we got another bout of salmonella. Oh, we've got another you know, another flint over here. Like in 50 years, if we continue down this trend, scientists will say that like half of our fresh water won't be potable or something like that. Like,
well, for New York, you know, that message, that tactic, I say, you know, is actually what's resonating with people. The first line that you hear for, you know, environmental change is like, hurricanes. We're going to get hurricanes in New York now. This is a reality now. You know, we are already suffering the consequences. And it's, you know, these values that we've had have already been trampled upon. Now it's a result of literally like repenting for what has happened. And that's what Earth Day is about. You know, why do we even have this holiday, guys? Because we live on this earth, and this earth has always unabashedly provided for us. Now, what are we going to do? And on that note, I'm going to say, let's take a break, and we'll come back and actually talk about some of the candidates that, you know, support environmental, you know, legislation, things that we can actually do to enact those changes and help curb, you know, making it worse. So we'll be right back.